Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. I'd like to call the City Council meeting to order for Tuesday, September 26, 2017. It's City Council meeting 2017-018, and I would just like to announce that this meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting laws. Please rise for the flag salute. Councilor Blank is going to lead us in the flag salute and a moment of silence. Councilor Blank.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Just an FYI, we're a couple of councilors down. Councilmember Hart is a little bit under the weather, and Councilor Cox is not here tonight either. So, first item, Madam Clerk, first item on the agenda.
First item is oral communications.
The public shall have the opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communication on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problem without debate, and the matter shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The resident will be notified within a 2-week period relative to the disposition of same, and a copy shall be forwarded to the City Council. Persons speaking under oral communications shall be limited to 3 minutes each, and the Council President shall not allow complaints as to individual performance. Is there anybody this evening that wants to speak under oral communications? Please come up and give us your name and address, please.
Is this on?
Should be on, yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sonny Robinson.
Sonny, can you raise it up just a little bit, sir? Good.
Is that better?
Yes.
Now I get the feedback, so I know it must be working. I'm Sonny Robinson. I live at 20 Harvard Street here in Gloucester. I'm here tonight representing the Coalition for the Prevention of Domestic Abuse, and I'm here simply to extend a request and an invitation to all of City Council to join us this coming Tuesday, us being the coalition, the mayor, the school department, the police department, and other local officials and agencies at our annual October Domestic Violence Awareness and Recommitment Ceremony, which will happen on the steps of City Hall. That is this coming Tuesday, October the 3rd at 12:30. For those of you who've been on the council for some time or school committee before that, you might remember that this will in fact be our 17th year of having this awareness and recommitment event at City Hall. We'd be very pleased to see the City Council join us this year for that event. You will have received, I'm sure, the letter of invitation from the mayor. You will have noted in that this year we are drawing special attention to the links between gun violence and domestic violence. One of the really alarming statistics we know from the Centers for Disease Control is that when there is a gun in the home, in the face of a domestic violence situation, a fatal shooting is 5 times more likely to occur in that domestic violence situation than in even the usual horrifying domestic violence situation. My request does not require follow-up from you as the City Council or from the mayor, except to please come join us this Tuesday, 12:30, on the steps of City Hall. Should the weather not be good, we will be here in the auditorium. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sonny. Very important issue. Is there anybody else who wants to speak on oral communication? Not seeing anybody. Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda.
The next item is the confirmation of new appointments. The first one is Community Development Director Jill Cahill, term to expire 2/14/20.
Does the administration want to say something first? Okay. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. President and councilors. For the record, my name is
Well, we can do the motion after. All right, just trying to do it procedurally.
For the record, my name's Jill Cahill. I'm a resident of Gloucester, and I'm thrilled to be here for your consideration for the Director of Community Development. I'm excited about the opportunity to be a part of the future of the city of Gloucester. And I know you have a big agenda tonight, so unless you have questions, I'll keep it short.
Okay, councilors, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
There is. Ordinance and Administration voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appoint Jill Cahill as Community Development Director, term to expire 2/14/20, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Welcome aboard. Next item.
Next item is the appointment of the Shellfish Constable, Tamelia Cominelli, and there's no term.
Councilor Blank.
Ordinance and Administration voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appoint Tammy Cominelli as Shellfish Constable, retroactive to August 30th, 2017, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Hi.
How you
Do you
doing?
want to say a couple of words?
Sure. Tamala Cominelli. I am,
Talk into the mic, please.
yes. My name's Tamala Cominelli. I've been the Assistant Shellfish Warden for the last 12 years. Was appointed a couple months ago full-time. Very excited to be here. A little nervous, but
Any
any
questions?
questions?
Any questions, Councilor? Before you do that, can I just, did you happen to work with or know Stubby Knowles?
No, he had passed before.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I worked with Dave Sargent for the last 12 years.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor?
I'm going to support Tammy tonight. I've known her for a number of years. She just said she worked under Dave Sargent. Dave was meticulous at his job. He was a wonderful shellfish agent. He's just retired, and I've known Tammy personally, and she's going to do an outstanding job. And I totally support you 100% tonight, Tammy.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, majority vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations
Thank
and
you.
welcome aboard.
Thanks.
I like the hat.
Next
Next item.
Next appointment is the Community Preservation Committee member Helen Holly Clay to fulfill the term of David Rylander, term to expire 2/14/20.
Is there a motion, Councilor?
There is. Ordinance and Administration voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appoint Holly Clay to the Community Preservation Committee, term to expire 2/14/20, and I so move.
Holly, are you here? Okay.
Holly said that she couldn't be here tonight, but she was she's been a member of another board. I think it was the Historical Commission. She's been on that before, so she has appeared before us just recently, within the past couple of months. She had a previous engagement, and I told her it wouldn't be necessary for her to come up tonight, but she was at O&A on Monday.
Great. Okay. Simple majority. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. If she was here, I'd say welcome aboard. Next item.
Next item is the appointment of Brian Hamilton to the Licensing Board to serve the remainder of the term for a previous member, term to expire 5/31/18.
Is there a motion?
Yes, there is. Ordinance Administration voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appoint Brian Hamilton to the Licensing Board, term to expire 5/31/18, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Brian, are you here?
Yes, he is.
Could you come up, please? Does anybody have any questions?
Evening, councilors.
Do you want to share anything with us, or?
No, nothing more than what I shared at the previous meeting.
Okay. I just have one question. Have you worked in a restaurant or a bar, or
Yes, I have.
what is your experience on that end?
My experience in the restaurant industry was I spent 7 years as an assistant general manager of a restaurant here in Gloucester.
Can I ask what restaurant it is?
Dog bar.
Dog bar?
Yes.
Okay. And that particular restaurant is going to be coming up for permits and things, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And what are your plans when it comes?
Recuse.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Welcome aboard. Next item.
Next item is the consent agenda.
Is there anybody that wants to pull any matter off the consent agenda? Councilor Orlando.
Thank you. I'm going to take item number 3 from the mayor's report, memorandum grant application and checklist from the interim police chief. And I would like to pull item number 3 from approval of minutes, the BNF minutes of 9/21/17 to amend the minutes.
Councilor Blank.
I'd like to pull, excuse me, item number 1, approval of minutes, city council minutes of 9/12/17 in order to move and to amend page 13 for the motion to return to the matter of the plastic bag ban to the O&A committee. Ask that the motion be struck and to add the motion as follows. Motion on a motion by Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor O'Hara. The City Council voted 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 Shilino recused to return to the matter of amending GCO Chapter 9 trash, recycling, and litter.
We're just doing the consent agenda. You'll have a chance after.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on it, okay? To read that motion, yeah, thank you. All right, is anybody else? Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended? So moved. All in favor? Aye. Okay, I'm going to start with Councilor Orlando.
Thank you.
What action do you want the council to take tonight?
So the grant lists the dollar amount. Okay, so the first item I pulled off the consent agenda is item number 3 from the mayor's report entitled Memorandum and Grant Application and Checklist from Interim Police Chief regarding the acceptance of fiscal year 18 state and 911 EMD and training grant in the amount of $12,433 for the purpose of correcting the record that the fiscal year 18 state and 911 emergency EMD and training grant, the amount should actually read $121,239.63. So I move to amend the consent agenda, item number 3, and refer that matter to the BNF committee.
All right, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. You done?
No, I've just got one more.
Okay, go to it.
And then, so the second item was to pull the item number 3 from the approval of minutes, which is BNF minutes of 9/21 to amend the minutes. And I'm going to move to amend the minutes on page 2, the motion to accept fiscal year 18 Coastal Resilience Grant Program from the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Coastal Zone Management by adding for $97,500 after the words Coastal Zone Management. And I so move.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor LeBlanc.
So under the approval of minutes, the city council minutes of 9/12/17, in order to move to amend page 13 for the motion to return the matter of the plastic bag ban to the O&A committee, I asked that the motion be struck and to add the motion as follows. Motion on a motion by Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor O'Hara. The city council voted 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 Councilor Shilino recused to return the matter of amending GCO Chapter 9, Trash, Recycling, and Litter, Section 9-12, and Section 9-13 by adding a new Section 9-12, which prohibits the use of plastic checkout bags, and adding a new Section 913 regarding penalties for violation of new Section 9-12 to the O&A committee, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee report of September 21st.
Thank you. The Vice Chair of Budget and Finance, Councilor Orlando, is going to be filling in for Councilor Memhard.
I'll try
Councilor Orlando.
I'll try to be as colorful as Scott would be. I doubt it'll happen. All right, so on a motion by Councilor Shalino, seconded by Councilor Memhard, the Budget and Finance Committee voted 2 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent, to recommend the City Council accept the federal grant for the Library Services and Technology Act grant under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, from the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences, passed through the Massachusetts Libraries Board of Library Commissioners in the amount of $4,200 for fiscal year 2018. The purpose of the grant is to fund a consulting archivist to perform a preservation and assessment of the City of Gloucester Municipal Archives and special collections, including those held at the Gloucester Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library. The grant terms from October 1st, 2017 to September 30th, 2018, and I so move.
Second.
Is there a narrative, Councilor?
Yep, this is an acceptance of a Library Services and Technology grant through the Mass Board of Commissioners for $4,200. The grant, Preserving Gloucester's History, a collaborative preservation assessment between the Sawyer Free Library and the Gloucester City Archives, enables the contracting of a preservation specialist to perform a local history assessment of the archives and the library, and the municipal archives, generating a report that will highlight collection risks and make recommendations as to the next steps for preserving each of the collections, and there is no match.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay. It was seconded, right? Sean, you're talking, all right. Okay, simple majority. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item.
On a motion by Councilor Shalino, seconded by Councilor Memhard, the Budget and Finance Standing Committee voted 2 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent, to recommend the City Council accept a state grant for the Healthy Summer Youth Jobs Grant Program under Mass General Law 44, Section 53A, from the Office of the Mass State Attorney General for $3,696. The purpose of this grant is to fund healthy summer jobs for local low-income youth. There is no local match for this grant. The grant term is from July 19th, 2017 to September 15th, 2017, and the grant term has been extended to December 31st, 2017, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a narrative?
The city's public health department, in collaboration with the Cape Ann Y, has received a Healthy Summer Youth Jobs Grant for $3,696 from the Office of the State's Attorney General. The grant supported the Y's hiring of 7 local low-income youth to assist in the running their mobile parks program. The successful pilot program brought the UMCA to neighborhoods with no, YMCA, to neighborhoods with no membership or camp fee. The 7 youth were employed through the summer, totaling 1,050 hours. The program complemented the health department's strategic plan to combat childhood obesity and inactivity in Gloucester, is well above the state average. It should be noted that the YMCA paid the youth out of their budget, and the grant will serve to reimburse the YMCA, which was a condition of the partnership. The grant deadline was extended to the end of the year to allow for the late acceptance of these funds.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any council discussion? Seeing none. Simple majority. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next item, Councilor.
All right, on a motion by Councilor Shalino, seconded by Councilor Memhard, the Budget and Finance Committee voted 2 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent, to recommend the City Council accept a state grant for the fiscal year 18 Coastal Resilience Grant Program for the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Coastal Zone Management, for $97,500 to fund the redesign of 5 of the City of Gloucester's most vulnerable wastewater pump stations located in flood-prone areas. This is a reimbursement grant, and all scheduled work must be completed no later than June 30th, 2018. There is a 25% required match to the total project cost, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a narrative?
City's in receipt of $97,500 grant from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Coastal Zone Management, for the fiscal year 18 Coastal Resilience Grant Program to fund the redesign contract for 5 of the city's most vulnerable wastewater pump stations located in flood-prone areas. The grant was before the council on June 27th for permission to apply. The Community Development Department is working with the DPW to co-manage the grant efforts, which aligns with infrastructure improvements that the city has to do. In essence, implementing the vulnerability assessment completed about a year ago for those projects identified as priorities. There's a 25% match which will come out of the Sewer Enterprise Fund fiscal year 18 budget of a total project cost of $30,000.
Thank you. Any council discussion? Simple majority. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, next order of business.
The next item is the Planning Development Standing Committee report of September 20th.
Councilor Lundberg.
We have nothing at this juncture, Mr. President. All of our matters are in the public hearing section.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Is the Ordinance and Administration Standing Committee report of September 18th.
Councilor LeBlanc.
Ditto. Everything is for a public hearing.
Okay, that brings us to our public hearing. Next item on the agenda.
Public hearing 2017-045, the rezoning application 2017-002, Rest Island Road Number 4, map 233, lot 72, from R10, medium-high density residential, to EB, extensive business.
Okay, I will open the public hearing, and I will close the public hearing and continue it to October 10th, 2017. Next item of business.
Next item is public hearing 049, loan order to amend loan order 2016-002 in the amount of $1,300,000 by increasing it to $1,570,000 to pay for the cost of improvements to the Gloucester Ave and Breezy Point sewer pump stations.
Okay, I will open up the public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to speak in favor?
Mr. President, I have to make a declaration.
I will. Come on up, John. When we come to the vote. Yeah.
Hello, Larry Durkin, DPW Environmental Engineer.
And John Dunn, CFO. So what we're proposing is an increase or an amendment to a loan order that was passed in July of 2016. The original amount was $1,300,000. As this project has moved along and the city put it out to bid, the bids came back in, and unfortunately, I have to report that the bids came back in much higher than projected. What we're facing, unfortunately, is continued inflation within construction costs, and we're facing this both with this amended loan order and the one to follow. We received the bids, both from the low bidder was the same construction firm, very competent firm, but again, what we saw were bids that came in about 10–20% higher than were expected in terms of the actual construction cost. So in order to move forward, we have to amend that original loan order by increasing it by about $270,000. If there's any specific questions as to the project itself, Environmental Engineer Larry Durkin is here to answer those.
We'll get back to it. Thank you. Before we go any further, Councilor Orlando has something he wants to say.
Yeah, I just want to declare under Mass General Law 268A that there's an appearance of a conflict of interest as I live on Breezy Point Road. This is the pumping station directly next to my house. It will not affect my vote in any way, shape, or form. For the record, I'm going.
Thank you for getting that on the record. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition? Okay. Are there any communications?
None.
Councilors, do you have any questions? Councilor Gilman.
So I have a question for Mr. Dunn, possibly. So we were really low on this. Can you give us a feel for what has increased by $270,000 just in terms of general contracting, in terms of what we initially estimated? In your opinion, where did we miss this by so much?
Actually, I'll defer that question to Mr. Durkin because he's much closer to the actual details within the contract that was bid.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. There's two components. One is there was a lot of bidding this spring. This is a state revolving fund project, so we were trying to bid it this summer, and we only got one bid the first time, and then we bid it again because the paperwork wasn't sufficient with the first contractor. So prices came in high. There was some additional work for the engineer. One of the pump stations is the Gloucester Ave pump station. It's a 1950s era building. So it's windows, doors, roofs. So it was more of an effort than the engineer imagined, and I think that was also reflected in the prices, over the estimate. I think there was more building component than the estimate, and prices are elevated.
Thank you, I'm comfortable with that. Appreciate it.
Councilors, any more questions? I'll close the public hearing. Is there a committee report?
So, on a motion by Councilor Shalino, seconded by Councilor Memhard, the Budget and Finance Committee voted 2 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent, to recommend the City Council authorize the following loan order. Ordered that the loan order 2016-002, Certificate of Vote 2016-129 of this Council, approved July 12, 2016, authorizing the borrowing of $1,300,000 to pay the cost of improvements to the Gloucester Avenue and Breezy Point sewer pump stations is amended in its entirety to provide as follows. At the City Council, the City of Gloucester appropriates $1,570,000 to pay costs of improvements to the Gloucester Avenue and Breezy Point sewer pump stations, including costs incidental and related thereto. To meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, the mayor and any other appropriate official of the city are authorized to apply for, accept, and expand any grants or gifts that may be available to the city to pay the costs of the projects. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. Further order that the Treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify under Chapter 44A of the general laws, any and all of the bonds authorized by this order, and to provide such information and to execute such documents as the Municipal Finance Oversight Board may require for these purposes, and I so move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions, or is there a narrative? Or?
No.
Okay, council discussion? So we need a roll call vote on this one.
Councilor Nolan? Yes. Councilor O'Hara? Councilor Orlando? Yes. Councilor Shalino?
Yes.
Councilor Cox is absent. Councilor Gilman? Yes. Councilor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Councilor Lundberg?
Yes.
And Councilor Memhard is absent. The motion to amend loan order 2016-002 in the amount of $1,570,000 passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
We still have another. I'm sorry.
Public hearing 2017-050, loan order to amend loan order 2015-003 in the amount of $555,500 by increasing it to $884,500 to pay for the cost of improvements to the Heritage Way Pump Station, construction of a new pump station service, Blackburn Industrial Park, and Harrison Ave Sewer Force Main Extension to Easton Avenue and Neptune Place.
Thank you. I will open up the public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to speak in favor? Please come up.
Good evening again, councilors. John Dunn, CFO. And to quote Councilor LeBlanc from earlier, ditto. Unfortunately, this is the same situation as what we just discussed. When the bids came in on the Heritage Way pump station project, they came in higher than expected. The little bit of a difference with this one is that we also have a $555,500 federal grant that's involved in this one. So we really don't want to let this go. We want to complete this, which will still be with about 40% of grant money from the federal government. So again, same situation as the earlier one. Bids came in higher just because of construction inflation and what we've been facing and the length of time it takes us from the start of a project, we get estimates until we finally bring them in.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition? Please come up. Are there any communications? You're in opposition to the sewer project?
I have a question, and it
You have to put the mic down
if
so
I
we
may.
can hear you.
I'm Deborah
Put the
Schwen-
mic down, please.
Oh, thank you. Deborah Schwendeman, just a citizen, local citizen. It seems to me, and I'm speaking out of ignorance, and I will admit, but in the previous decision that was just made, the inference was that somehow the engineer didn't see this building the same way that they might have seen it to begin with, and all of a sudden this building had windows and doors and things that didn't exist before, and that was part of the increase. That seemed unconscionable to me, but evident, and I appreciate your asking the questions. You didn't ask, of course, previously why, you know, what's it, labor costs, material costs, supposedly engineering costs, but the building didn't change any from when they saw it the first time. So that was confusing to me, but I'll pass on that. This one has a 40% increase, is that correct, from what the original bid was over the course of 2 years? Has construction costs, have they gone up 40% in 2 years, which seems unrealistic to me as a citizen that's not what we talk about in normal buildings. So I'd want to know why there's such an increase of 40%. Is it labor? Is it materials? Is there an explanation for that? I don't know what it is, and I'm just curious. And once again, I speak out of ignorance, but I have to be concerned about 40% as an increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody, I'll call you up. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in opposition? Okay. Communications?
None.
Council questions? Can you answer the question?
Yes, I think just talking with the CFO, the increase is 20%, not 40%. We were hopeful that prices would come in good. There is an alternate to this, which is cast in place lining of the sewer, which is a 1948 clay sewer. So what we're going to do is it'll be pretty much fiberglass put inside, and then it's baked. So in other words, we don't only get new sewer pump stations up to Blackburn, but the whole discharge line to the city main interceptor is improved. So that at alternative, this funding seeks to fund that. We were hopeful prices would come in good, and we were able to do it within what was budgeted.
Thank you. Councilors, are there any more questions? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a committee report?
Yes. On a motion by Councilor Scialino, seconded by Councilor Memhard, the Budget and Finance Committee voted 2 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent to recommend the City Council authorize the following loan order. Order that the loan order 2015-003, certificate of vote 2015-090 of this council approved June 9, 2015, authorized the borrowing of $555,500 to pay the cost of improvements in the Heritage Way pump station, construction of a new pump station servicing the Blackburn Industrial Park and Harrison Avenue sewer forced main extension to Eastern Avenue / Neptune Place is amended in its entirety to provide as follows. That the City of Gloucester appropriates $884,500 to pay costs of improvements to Heritage Way pump station, construction of a new pump station servicing the Blackburn Industrial Park and Harrison Avenue sewer forced main extension to Eastern Avenue / Neptune Place, including costs incidental and related thereto. To meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The mayor and any other appropriate official of the city are authorized to apply for, accept, expend, and grants or gifts that may be available to the city to pay costs of the projects. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of the costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. Further order that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify under Chapter 44A of the general laws any or all of the bonds authorized by this order, and to provide such information and execute such documents as the Municipal Finance Oversight Board may require for these purposes. And I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara? Yes. Councilor Orlando?
Yes.
Councilor Shalino?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman? Yes. Councilor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Councilor Lundberg?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent, to amend loan order 2015-003 to the amount of $884,500.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is 2017-003, public hearing, special city council permit 004, commercial street number 33, map 1, lot 22, Gloucester zoning ordinance section 2.3.61 for parking of motor vehicles to service use in an MI district, in Gloucester Code of Ordinances section 22, section 22-153, privately owned open-air parking spaces.
Thank you. Before we get started, I would like to call for a vote to suspend the council rules of procedure in order to start this public hearing from its beginning, now that the planning board has completed its site plan review as required under the zoning ordinance on this matter. So do I hear a motion? So do I hear a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. We will open the public hearing. I want to preface this as an FYI that we only have 7 councilors here tonight, 2 are absent. This application was going to need 6 votes. It's not a majority. It has to be 6 votes of the council. So I want to give an opportunity to Mr. Mondello if he wants to continue it, or if he wants to be heard tonight. Please come up.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Adam Costa. I represent Bill and Carol Mondello, the applicants for the special council permit. We would like to proceed tonight, notwithstanding the limited membership of the council. So you may recall we were before you last in early July. We began this process back in early April, I believe it was, before your Planning and Development Subcommittee and ultimately before the full council. This is an application for privately owned open-air parking spaces at property at 33 Commercial Street. We had submitted 2 applications concurrently back in April. One was for the property just opposite 33 Commercial at 44 Commercial. That application was approved relatively quickly. The 33 Commercial Street application, I would say, was a similar application, but was not approved so quickly. And I think it will refresh your recollection that maybe part of the reason, if not entirely the reason for that reluctance on the part of the council and maybe even the subcommittee to recommend or approve it as quickly as the 44 Commercial Street property was concerned about objections raised by the Beauport Hotel, which is an immediate neighbor to the 33 Commercial Street property. The hotel sent a representative to a couple of your meetings, and I believe the subcommittee meeting as well, and that representative raised objections to the proposal on the basis of certain title issues. They alleged that they had certain rights to use the 33 Commercial Street property. They alleged that they had an easement to use portions of that property, and they expressed concern that the granting of the special council permit would somehow run afoul of their rights. I expressed the position at I think the second of the meetings before you, second session of the public hearing before you, that I didn't believe that was a matter that was properly before the council, that matters of title are generally not matters that are before permitting boards in the context of special permits, variances, other sorts of zoning approvals. Those are matters for the courts. And in fact, as we were very open about, both myself and counsel representing Beauport Hotel, this is a matter that has proceeded to litigation. We are working through the litigation relative to a number of different issues, one of which is the extent of the parking easement that the Beauport Hotel alleges to have within the 33 Commercial Street property. My position then and my position now was that the relief that's being sought, the application that has been made to this council, is for open air parking spaces, and that nothing about that is inconsistent in any way with the use that the hotel is alleging it has of a portion of this parking lot. That if indeed they are successful in pursuing their lawsuit in the land court, and the land court determines that they have a certain right to use a number of spaces within the parking lot at 33 Commercial Street, that'll be of no effect on this permit, the existence of an open air parking lot. They will simply have the right to use a certain number of spaces, I presume, if they're successful in court. And that, of course, will limit the number of spaces that are available to be used in accordance with any permit that would issue from the council. At your early July meeting, you made the determination, as you, Mr. President, just said a moment ago, that this matter ought to be referred to the Planning Board for site plan approval. And so we did indeed make an application for site plan approval. We were before the Planning Board, I think it was last month or early this month. And by decision dated September 15th, the Planning Board did grant, almost unanimously, there was one member voting against, did grant the site plan approval for the project. And they did so specifically adopting the site plan that we had presented. One of the issues that was presented at that meeting, in fact, the chief issue that was presented by Beauport Hotels Council, was a concern with the plan's compliance with the requirements of zoning. I can address that in a number of ways, and I'll address it very quickly, and certainly if councilors have further questions, I can address it with greater specificity or with more information. But I said two things to the Planning Board, and I think that they understood them both quite well. The first was, it's questionable whether these requirements of your zoning ordinance that speak to standards for off-street parking even apply to these self-contained open-air parking lots. Your off-street parking requirements, it says in the very initial section of 4.1, are intended to apply to parking that is meant to be appurtenant to buildings or structures or principal uses, and they relate to the importance of having those spaces be located appropriately in connection with the principal use of those individual properties. The second point, and maybe the more important point, is that this is an existing parking lot. This parking lot has existed as appurtenant to the structure at 33 Commercial Street for many, many years. And Mac Bell, who's in attendance tonight and is the property owner, can certainly testify to that. He did so at the first and maybe even the second session of the public hearing before the council. The suggestion that we somehow make improvements to the parking lot, and for the most part, if you walk through the performance standards that apply to off-street parking that is appurtenant to principal uses, we meet those requirements. There are a couple that we don't, and we discussed those with the Planning Board. Things like the concept of paving the parking lot, things like the concept of striping the parking lot. We've never had a complaint in our history, and Matt can confirm that, with dust or other environmental contaminants resulting from the use of a parking lot that's not paved. And in fact, through previous appearances at the Conservation Commission, they've expressed a position, a preference, that the parking area not be paved. By paving the parking area, we're converting what would be a pervious surface to an impervious surface, and essentially we're funneling all the runoff into the harbor, and we wouldn't want to do that. We've never had issue with the functioning of the parking lot. This is not a particularly challenging parking lot layout. It's a rectangle. There are parking spaces on your right. There are parking spaces on your left. You pull into the site, you pull into a parking space. When you leave, you back out of your parking space and you pull back off the site. So there are no issues with circulation, no issues with questions about where these parking spaces are located or how to maneuver in and out of the site. It's a relatively simple layout for the site. The Planning Board understood that. They asked the hotel directly, what is it that you want? If we stand here and we require the applicant to pave the parking lot and stripe the lines, is that what you're here for? And I think the obvious answer to that question, I'm not sure the hotel ever answered it directly, is No. The obvious answer is they were before the planning board for the same reason that they were before the planning and development subcommittee, the same reason they were before your full council on 2 occasions, which is that they're opposed just to the general use. And our position is that the use we're proposing is entirely consistent with any easement that they might ultimately have, and that ultimately the easement that they have or don't have is a matter for the courts and not for the council. I'll leave you with one thing, and I think it's an important thing. And they didn't mention it in their presentation. We alluded to it in our presentation previously. Their suggestion is that somehow, some way, the council shouldn't grant a special council permit because they're entitled to use of a certain number of spaces in connection with their adjacent Beauport Hotel. The Beauport Hotel was permitted, as you all know, within the Hotel Overlay District, which was adopted for the very purpose of allowing that hotel to be constructed. The Hotel Overlay District zoning ordinance requires that parking either be, number one, on site within the overlay district, or number two, if it's to be located off-site and therefore outside of the Hotel Overlay District, that it be located in a district that allows hotel use either by right or by special permit. This proposal is in the Marine Industrial District. The Marine Industrial District does not allow hotel use either by right or by special permit. So even if they were able to establish that they've got these easement rights through land court litigation, that's not the final step in the process. They would need to come back before the council and seek a rezoning of my client's property for the purposes of making it available for parking in connection with the hotel. So I think that's an important thing to remember. Again, I think it was alluded to, maybe not even by me, but by one of your counselors, Councilor Cox, I think it was, had made reference to it at the second session of the public hearing back in July. And I think that's an important thing for the council to be aware of. And with that, I'll yield the floor to the council, and I'm certainly happy to respond to questions you have about the legalities, and my clients are present, and they can certainly answer any questions you have about the functionality of the parking lot.
Attorney Costa, I just want to talk about procedure.
Yes.
You're asking for a city council permit.
That's correct.
There are 5 criteria. This council needs for you to talk about those 5 criteria and how they're met in order to get that into the record. And since you're also asking you're in the marine industrial, you need to deal with 5.18, which those criteria. We need to get that into the record. Are you prepared?
I am. So we, with respect to section 5.1.8 dealing with the marine industrial district, there are 5 specific requirements that apply. Number 1, the proposed use will not displace an existing water-dependent use with a non-water-dependent use. This is a use, as I mentioned before, that pre-exists on the site. Certainly there is no use that is being displaced. It's a parking lot. It's been a parking lot for many years. It will continue to be a parking lot. Number 2, the proposed use will not, by virtue of its location, scale, duration, operation, or other aspects, preempt or interfere with existing or future development of water-dependent uses of the project site or surrounding property. Again, there is nothing about this use that is new. It's a pre-existing use. Its location, its scale, its duration, its operation, nor any other aspects are in any way interfering with existing or future development of water-dependent uses. There's already a water-dependent use on the site that has existed in the permitted fashion for a number of years. Number 3, the proposed use is compatible with the working waterfront character of the zone. I would suggest that, if anything, the availability of further parking within the waterfront zone will be something that attracts visitors, residents to the waterfront area, knowing that they have available parking that would not otherwise be available, would require them to park elsewhere and to walk to the area. Having spaces available would be an immediate benefit. Number 4, the proposed project will not displace existing commercial fishing vessels berthing in Gloucester Harbor without providing equivalent space and draft at a suitable alternative site not already used by commercial fishing vessels. Again, I mentioned before that there's no displacement of existing water-dependent uses. Similarly, there's no displacement of existing commercial fishing vessels that are berthing at the site. Criterion number 5, the proposed use will not adversely affect the preservation of water-dependent uses on surrounding properties. Again, if anything, I think that the use will be beneficial in the sense that it will encourage individuals, visitors and residents alike, to come to the waterfront area. bear with me for just a moment, Mr. President. I'm looking for what I believe was the narrative that we had submitted previously that addressed the other more general standards.
I know this is the third time we're hearing it, but we need to get into the record.
Yes, understood.
Correctly. If you can't find the 5 criteria, I have them here.
If you would, I apologize.
Carrying
We had
with me at
submitted
all
a narrative,
time.
and I'm not placing my fingers on it immediately. If you could, thank you.
Yeah. I want to. I need it back for the next public
I
hearing.
certainly will, and I
Thank you.
apologize. Thank you. So under section 1.8.3, these are the more general criteria, not specific to the Marine Industrial District. Number 1, the social, economic, and community needs that will be served by the proposed use. Again, I believe that this will be a boost to the economy in the sense that it'll provide for available parking in an area that is in desperate need of parking. We've had some issues before, and I believe that Mac Bell had testified to them in an earlier session of the public hearing with respect to the challenges that exist for parking in the area and the available parking on this site because of the fact that even when fully tenanted, there are additional spaces in the lot that go unused on a day-to-day basis. Also, the use is limited in hours. So there are certain hours when there are tenants who are utilizing the parking, and there are other hours when, for example, the restaurants are booming, the bar scene is hopping, and there's a need for parking. And in those instances, available parking on a site that has it would be beneficial. Traffic flow and safety, I referenced before the fact that this is a rectangular lot, so there's no issue with respect to circulation or traffic flow or safety. It's easy in, it's easy out, and I believe it's part of the submittal that we had originally made to the council indicates that this will be a staffed parking lot, so that'll facilitate both entering and exiting the parking lot. Adequacy of utilities and other public services, there are none required that don't already exist on the site today. Neighborhood character and social structure, we're not changing the character because we're not really changing the use. I understand we're converting an accessory use to a use that is more principal in nature, but nevertheless it's the same use. Number 5, qualities of the natural environment. There'll be no effect on the natural environment associated with this. In fact, if we were to do the sorts of things that have been advocated for example, by the Beauport Hotel and pave the site, there'd be a negative environmental impact, whereas maintaining the existing condition is beneficial to the environment. And then finally, potential fiscal impact. We believe that this will have a positive fiscal impact on the harbor front in the sense that it'll bring individuals to the harbor front and provide available parking for them. Thank you.
I was channeling former Councilor Jackie Hardy, who always insisted that these get read into the record. And her plaque is right there. And so she's with us all the time, reminding us how to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition? Seeing none, is there any communications?
None.
Councilors, do you have any questions? Councilor Blank.
If the parking lot is full,
Who are you going to address to?
whoever can answer it. If the parking lot is full, where will the cars be directed?
Council.
Good evening. Name's William Mondello. We have the permit for parking lot at 44 already. If 33 is full, we'll direct them to 44. If not, we will tell them there's no parking available.
Okay. Any other questions, councilors? Okay, hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Is there a committee report?
There is. On a motion by Councilor Nolan, seconded by Councilor Gilman, Planning and Development Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council grant a special council permit, SPC 2017-004, under Mass General Law 148, Section 56, GZO, Sections 2.3.0 6.1, parking of motor vehicles to service a use permitted in the MI district and GCO 22-153 for an open-air parking lot located at Commercial Street number 33, Assessors Maps 1, Lot 22, Zone MI, to William Mondello, applicant through the owner of property at Commercial Street 44, Mac Bell, for 1907 LLC for the purpose of operating an open-air parking lot, which is found in harmony, the purpose of GZO 1.8.3 with the following conditions, and I request that we waive the conditions. And I so move.
All in favor, say aye. On the conditions, waiving the conditions. Okay.
And I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Any narrative or? No?
Yes, one other small housekeeping item here. We have to have a small amendment without objections to strike the words, quote, through owner of property at Commercial Street 44, and in its place add the word, quote, owner, end quote. So we need to accept that amendment as a small amendment.
Okay. Yeah, it's moved and seconded. All in favor to accept the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Anything else?
Nope. Well, only to say that this is, we've heard this several times, and we were waiting for the plan site review by the planning board, which has now been entered, and so I think our record is complete.
Anybody else? We're on comments.
Yeah.
If you have a question, we can. Councilor Orlando.
Just a comment. So I just wanted to remind councilors, I think it's best for us to stay away from questions about easements and things of the like. We should really just address the question of the use of the lot. And, if we overstep in this area and the threats of legal action we've already got, we got to be very careful about how we proceed. So I would stick to the questions of whether we want to grant a special permit for this type of use in this district. So, and I think that it's important to note precedent as well. So let's keep all those things in mind when we make our decision.
Anybody else? Councilor LeBlanc.
So, Ward 3 comes down Commercial Street and it goes into Beach Court. I get phone calls almost weekly about parking issues on Beach Court, Commercial Street. I know Councilor Cox and I have talked about parking issues down the Fort. Commercial Street, Fort Square, Beach Court is only so big, and you can only allow so many cars and traffic in that little congested area. I've spoken to a couple of my constituents that live on Beach Court, and they feel that this parking lot would contribute to, under Section 1.8.3, to traffic flow and safety. So without a plan to disperse cars in a proper manner to another area, what's going to end up happening is people that aren't allowed into these two lots or any place down there will be overflowing Commercial Street, Fort Square, and Beach Court. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to support this tonight, and my constituents have asked me not to support it tonight.
Anybody else? I see it a little differently. One of the reasons we have the applicant defend the 5 criteria that we have for a special city council permit, and because it's in the marine industrial, to defend all the what has to be there. Legally, and to the letter of the law, I don't believe that we can deny this application, because legally he's done everything that we've asked him to do and what our zoning ordinance does. I know that parking is very tight down there, but I feel that any added parking, if these people, you know, especially people that are going to the beach or going to the Beauport, have a place to park. And a lot of them would probably be happy to pay instead of going around in circles. I have been there on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon. I go there after work just to check it out. And out of all the permitting we did for the Beauport, one of the things that we really didn't work on a little bit harder is the parking issue. And so any additional parking and any controlled parking, I think will be a benefit to the neighborhood. So I will be supporting this tonight. And I just don't see legally, that we have any cause not to support it. So with that being said, we'll start with Councilor Orlando. Councilor Lumberg.
I was just going to echo that. I hear what Councilor LeBlanc is saying about his feedback from his constituents, but more parking's got to be better at the end of the day. And right now, the situation that you describe about people coming down there and not being able to find a place to park, that exists today. So this will help ameliorate that. And so I think that, and I agree with Councilor Salino, the applicant has provided all of the information that we need as a council to evaluate the special permit, so I will also be supporting it.
Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting it as well. I grew up in Ward 3, actually, at 5 Weston Avenue, which it's a very rare thing in that downtown district. It has its own parking lot. And I can tell you that there's regularly, as I used to post up in the corner of when I was like 12, telling people they couldn't park there during the business day, people looking for parking in the area. It's, right up around the corner on Talley. So the whole downtown area is congested that way, so I think more parking is important. The other thing that's at play here is that we have a precedent that we set. We allowed this type of a use right across the street at 44. And so our precedent does mean something. We made a decision about it earlier, and that should also weigh into our decision. So I'm going to be supporting this tonight.
All set? Okay, so roll call vote.
Councilor Nolan? Yes. Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Orlando? Yes. Councilor Shalino?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman? Yes. Councilor LeBlanc?
No.
Councilor Lumberg?
Yes.
The motion to grant special city council permit 2017-004 for an open-air parking lot passes on a vote of 6 in favor, 1 opposed, 2 absent.
That's all it takes is 6, so the motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda.
Next item is public hearing 2017-048, special city council permit 2017-011, Coburn Street, number 1, map 157, lots 72 and 39, Gloucester zoning ordinance section 3.1.6b and section 3.2 for building height in excess of 35 feet.
Again, we're going to start this from the beginning, so I'm going to call for a vote to suspend the council rules of procedure in order to start this public hearing from its beginning now that the Planning and Development Committee has completed its site visit review as requested by the council. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Seconded? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. 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 Okay. We're back to the same situation that we had earlier. We only have 7 councilors here. It's going to take 6 for this to pass. So the applicant has the option, if they wish. We have a couple of options. One is that we can do the public hearing and go forward. We can do the public hearing and continue the vote, or the applicant can say that they want to continue in 2 weeks. So
I think we wish to continue for 2 weeks.
you wish to continue it in 2 weeks? Okay. Is there a motion to accept that?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to continue this for 2 weeks until the city council is at full strength. All in
The date, October 10th.
The date is October 10th. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next item.
Next item is public hearing 2017-051 to amend Gloucester zoning ordinance by adding a new definition to Section 6 for recreational marijuana establishments and to add a new Section 5.31, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments.
I open the public hearing. Is there anybody to speak in favor? Anybody to speak in favor? Seeing none?
That's not in favor. That's not.
Are you in favor?
Over in favor.
I'm against establishing the recreational facilities here in town.
So you're in favor of the moratorium? Yeah. Do you want to speak?
Sure.
Okay. Introduce yourself and your address, please.
Okay. I'm Joshua M. Ulrich, 7 Grandview Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My wife Leora and I have raised our family here. She's a school nurse. I've coached youth athletics in town since I've been here with my kids. Although I'm not speaking on behalf of my agency, I've been involved with law enforcement for my entire adult life. I'm presently a homicide investigator for the state police, but I'm speaking as a private citizen, somebody who lives here in Gloucester. I think what we'll find is that a lot of the adversaries or a lot of the people that support the idea of having recreational retail outlets that sell marijuana in town, they're going to tell you that there's no violence associated with marijuana, that it's not a drug that leads to more dangerous drugs. They're going to tell you that alcohol is worse than marijuana. They're going to tell you that there's lots of upright, good citizens that recreationally use marijuana. And they're going to talk about that there's a lot of revenue that can be brought into the city and that it can all be regulated and it'll be fine. And I have to tell you why there's a lot of data that's subject to manipulation, and we should all be aware of this, looking at the history of cigarettes and genetically modified organisms and things like that. My personal experience, having been into hundreds of households, investigated suicides, drug overdoses, homicides, accidental deaths, has been quite to the contrary of that. And if I can tackle that point by point. As for no violence, I've personally been involved in murders and attempt murders, shootings and stabbings that have related to situations that have sprung out of drugs, particularly marijuana. A lot of these marijuana dealers are seen as lucrative targets for gangs that are looking to score more drugs or looking to rob people. And this is in this county. This is in Essex County. As far as not being a dangerous drug or something a gateway to more dangerous drugs, I've heard some people say that it's not, but in talking to a lot of heroin addicts, I've also heard that the first thing that got them started was, in fact, use of marijuana. As for the situation with a lot of upstanding, good citizens that are using marijuana regularly, while I'm sure that there are some, and I have met some people that seem relatively harmless that smoke marijuana, most of my experience is that this is a drug that's tied to people that are involved in criminal activity or they're malingering, i.e. that they're the type of people that you'll often see that are faking some kind of disability so that they can collect welfare checks and stay at home on the couch and play video games. It's not something I've seen associated with hardworking, ambitious people that are productive members in helping the community to their full potential. As for revenue and regulation, I think that we have our hands full just trying to manage problems that come out of alcohol and this plethora of prescription drugs that we're obviously experiencing an epidemic with. It may be something you already know, but I've actually been involved with investigating crimes that have had to do with rip-offs or people selling Adderall. We've got a problem with opiates, which is no big secret. I think we had about 2,000 deaths last year from opiate overdoses in Massachusetts. And I think this year, Essex County is close to 150. I think that another thing to consider, I mean, alcohol is bad, but do we really want to open the gates to have yet another drug here brought into the town? And do we want Gloucester to be a magnet if some of the towns around us are not welcoming in these recreational venues to sell marijuana. Do we want to be the place, the city where a lot of people are coming? Do we want our police now spending more time, stopping cars with some of the people that we all know that are maybe not real upright, good citizens that are coming here to go ahead and get their drugs? Do we want to have a proliferation of this substance even more so among our youth? And I think that's, if anything's going to be persuasive in this argument for not having this here, it's what it's doing to our kids. We've got a problem already with our children using this stuff. I don't think there's anybody who'll tell you that recreational use of marijuana, or any other substance for that matter, is a healthy thing for our kids. And it's getting to kids younger and younger, and I think we've seen it, we know people, and we all have our own personal stories. And I'm buried with this kind of stuff. I see it all the time. It seems to me that in the interest of the kids and as adults and responsible members of the community, it's kind of on us to stand up for a principle and try to turn the tide on this thing and not just say, well, it's here anyway, let's just have it. I think this is a good time where we kind of, as a city, come together and say, look, it's legal here. If you want to smoke it as an adult and be responsible, that's fine. But in the interest of the kids, this should not be a place where people come to and our city gets known for, where the adults condone this kind of activity. It's just not healthy. It's not good for our kids. And basically, in closing, I mean, there's certainly arguments where some people feel that this is a better substance for them to use to medicate themselves for cancer and things like that, but that's not really what we're talking about right here. And I would argue that it's not necessarily compassionate to go ahead and make this substance more readily available and more ubiquitous than it already is to help the few people that are suffering at the expense of risking the very health and the psychological well-being of the children that live here. I mean, we're adults. It's our number one responsibility to really lay the groundwork for the next generation coming up that's going to be living here. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody to speak in opposition? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any more in favor?
Hi, I am in favor of the moratorium.
Okay.
My name's Leora Ulrich. I live on 7 Grandview Road.
Thank you.
Leora Ulrich, 7 Grandview Road. I just want to say that I am totally in favor of a moratorium. I think it's the only responsible thing we need to do. I was able to attend several forums this summer, and I believe that our city is not ready to go forward with this. So I think we need the time, minimally. I would like to ban it personally, but it's not an option. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor?
Lisa Grollo, forgot my address, 598 Western Ave. I am in favor of a moratorium. Excuse me. I don't believe that our city is ready for this. At some of the local hearings that we had over the summer, a lot of this stuff is unlabeled. It's easily misunderstood as a harmful substance to children. From what I'm gathering, this can come in a liquid form, and I'm hearing that I have children of high school age, middle school age, and not just in Gloucester, that kids are vaping all over the place. So how are we going to make sure that kids are not using the substance during school hours? How are we going to regulate it? How are we going to know they're even using it if it's not packaged correctly? How will our law enforcement be ready to handle the challenges that come with these kinds of establishments opening in our city? And foremost, I believe in our city. It's a beautiful place. It's amazing. We have so much good going here, and I don't believe that we need to add something that I believe will cause harm to our children and to our reputation as an amazing place to visit and live. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor?
Brian Hamilton, 6 Lawrence Mountain Road. I don't think this council has any choice but to pass a moratorium. If you look at the simple facts, the Cannabis Control Commission still has not and will not complete all of the rules and regulations until sometime next year. If we don't put off and defer allowing recreational facilities in the city of Gloucester, we're only going to have a couple of months to figure out how to deal with everything, because that's when we're going to find out the rules. By placing this moratorium, we'll actually give ourselves the time to properly deal with any issues that may come up that we couldn't even begin to foresee now. It's the only responsible thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor?
Joe Gigaloni, 16 Gould Court. Mr. Hamilton kind of stole my thunder a little. I support the moratorium simply because the state's not ready to offer guidance to the cities and towns yet. As he said, the Cannabis Commission has just been formed. There's really nothing they can offer the cities and towns. There's going to be a lot of issues, as in enforcement, zoning, and all other kinds of things. There's no reason. I mean, this is important. We need to get it right. Let's wait for the state to get their act together before we get ours together. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition to the moratorium? Seeing none, are there any communications?
There are none.
No communication. Councilors, do you have any questions? Okay. I will close the public hearing. We have a couple of motions. And,
we do have a couple of motions. The first motion is to add to our zoning ordinance a definition of a recreational marijuana establishment. So on a motion by Councilor Cox, seconded by Councilor Gilman, Planning and Development Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed to recommend the City Council amend the Gloucester zoning ordinance section 5 definitions by adding a definition for recreational marijuana establishment as follows, quote, recreational marijuana establishment, a marijuana cultivator, marijuana testing facility, marijuana product manufacturer, marijuana retailer, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related business subject to the regulation under Chapter 94G of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 94G, provided, however, that a registered marijuana dispensary shall not be deemed to be a recreational marijuana establishment, end quote, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Any council discussion?
Councilor Lundberg, you stated it was Section 5. Is it Section 5 or is it Section 6?
5 or 6.
Section Roman numeral 6, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, we good? All right, it's discussion. Seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Councilor Nolan? Yes. Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Orlando? Yes. Councilor Shalino?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman? Yes. Councilor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Councilor Lundberg?
Yes.
The motion to amend Gloucester zoning ordinance section 6 definitions recreational marijuana establishments and section 5.31 temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Thank you. On the second motion, Councilor Lundberg.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there there's another motion?
Shouldn't we vote on this one first?
Yeah.
We did.
Okay.
Definition.
So yes, we have another motion. This one relates to the moratorium. Currently, well, I'll read the motion first. On a motion by Councilor Cox, seconded by Councilor Gilman, the Planning and Development Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed to recommend that the City Council amend the Gloucester zoning ordinance by adding new Section 5.31, quote, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments to prohibit the establishment of a recreational marijuana establishment on a temporary basis through December 31st, 2018 as follows. I guess I'm going to read it since it's fairly important.
I think it needs to be on the record.
Well, okay. Section 5.31, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments. Section 5.31.1, purpose. On November 8, 2016, the voters of the Commonwealth approved a law regulating the cultivation, processing, distribution, possession, and use of marijuana for recreational purposes. The law which allows certain personal use and possession of recreational purposes, possession of marijuana took effect on December 15, 2016, and as amended on December 30, 2016, Chapter 351 of the Acts of 2016 requires a Cannabis Control Commission to issue regulations regarding the licensing of commercial activities by March 15, 2018, and to begin accepting applications for licenses on April 1, 2018. Currently, under the zoning ordinance, a non-medical marijuana establishment, hereinafter referred to as a recreational marijuana establishment, as defined by MGL Chapter 94G, is not specifically addressed in the Gloucester zoning ordinance. Regulations to be promulgated by the Cannabis Control Commission may provide guidance on certain aspects of local regulation of recreational marijuana establishments. The regulation of recreational marijuana establishments raises novel, legal, planning, public health, and public safety issues, and the city requires time to study and to consider the regulation of recreational marijuana establishments and address such issues, as well as to address the potential impact of the state regulations on local zoning, and to undertake a planning process to consider amending the zoning ordinance regarding regulation of recreational marijuana establishments and other uses related to the regulation of recreational marijuana. The city adopts this temporary moratorium on the use of land and structures in the city for recreational marijuana establishments so as to allow sufficient time to engage in planning process to address the effects of such structures and uses in the city, and to amend the Gloucester zoning ordinance in a manner consistent with sound land use planning and the goals and objectives of the community. Section 5.31.2, temporary moratorium. For the reasons set forth above, and notwithstanding any other provisions of the zoning ordinance to the contrary, the city hereby adopts a temporary moratorium on the use of land or structures for a recreational marijuana establishment and other uses related to recreational marijuana. The moratorium shall be in effect through December 31st, 2018, or 6 months from the date the final regulations are issued by the Cannabis Control Commission, whichever date is later. At any point prior to the referenced timeframes, the City Council may amend the zoning ordinance to regulate recreational marijuana establishments and terminate the moratorium. During the moratorium period, the city shall undertake a planning process to address the potential impacts of recreational marijuana use in the city, consider the regulations established by the Cannabis Control Commission regarding recreational marijuana establishments and related uses, and shall consider amending the Gloucester zoning ordinance in response to these new issues, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
It's fairly self-explanatory, I think. The current state of towns and cities imposing a moratorium, a temporary moratorium to December 31, 2018 has been found by the Attorney General to be reasonable, and most cities and towns are considering, for the same reason that we stated earlier, for planning purposes, make sure we get it right.
Second.
It's moved and seconded, okay. We'll start with Councilor Gilman.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the council right now to, I'd just like to request that we suspend our hearing protocol. I wanted to ask questions and I didn't.
All in favor to suspend the rules? Aye.
My question is, I just thought that it would be beneficial for all of us to hear the recommendation from our planning manager, Greg Catamatori, as well as Karen Carroll, who is the task force chair. Both of these boards came up with recommendations for our council, and I think it would just be helpful for us just to pause before our vote and hear what their votes were in their respective committees. So thank you.
Thank you, Council, for bringing it up.
Good evening. Greg Catamatori, Planning Director. I'll be brief. Again, I think you had the benefit of having several people speak at your public hearing. The Planning Board had very few people speak, but they also, excuse me, were the initiator of the amendment. Again, we've been through several presentations on the different actions that the community can take to regulate these types of uses. And so there are other steps
the council can take, which will inform how this may be present in the community or permitted in the community. And so, again, we're basically waiting to learn more about how the state will act on these potential uses in the community. And so that's why we've proposed this period of time. And again, it does sunset. It is something that, provided that there isn't a ban on a ballot that's approved, we will have to identify where in the community we will permit these uses. So that's something that will take a lot more discussion leading through the summer into the fall. A lot of information was provided to make the decision whether you wanted to engage with the community through the ballot process to consider a ban. There may be an opportunity to do that again in the next potential election. But barring that, we will have to identify where we will consider these uses in the community. And most communities that have either gone through the ban process or are basically in the same boat of trying to identify the different parameters that they'll have to consider when they identify where in those communities they may allow them. So there was a unanimous vote of the Planning Board to initiate this amendment, and after public hearing, a unanimous recommendation to enact the language as it was initially proposed. I can answer any other questions if you have any.
Good, thank you. You want to get Karen? No.
Hello, I'll be brief too. I just want to reiterate Greg's points that the mayor's task force on recreational marijuana that was comprised of several city departments as well as representation from the council and the school committee unanimously voted on a moratorium at this point, given the information we have. So after meeting and working for a year, reviewing all the information, our recommendation was also for a moratorium.
Great, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
All set? Any discussion, anybody? We're going to take a roll call vote on this, and it's going to take 6 votes for it to pass. And we have 7 councilors here, so for the best. I just want to explain how I'm going to vote. I'm going to take the advice of the commission and vote for the moratorium. I don't think the state is ready, and I don't think we can't be ready until the state's ready. So until all the pieces fall in place, I think the moratorium is the best solution for Gloucester. Anybody else? Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, just briefly, I think a moratorium makes sense whether you are for or against the establishment of recreational marijuana facilities in Gloucester. Because it's not just about whether we have them, it's about where they go, it's about how they're governed, it's about a lot of questions we can't answer because it's never been done. There's not a lot of precedent. So I'm going to support a moratorium.
Councilor Lundberg.
I just would like to commend the task force and Karen for the work that they did, and also Councilor Gilman, who was the council representative on the task force, and particularly the ward hearings that were held during the summer. We held one in every ward. One ward had 2. And we got a lot of great input, and I think the sense of the community was that this moratorium was very important. So,
anybody else? Councilor Gilman.
Thank you for your kind words, Councilor Lundberg. I did want to also mention that several folks, as Councilor Lundberg inferred, that were very strong advocates of retail establishments for medical marijuana were also supportive of the moratorium, in that they want our community to be thoughtful in terms of how many and where we decide, if we do, to put out to a vote to the citizens of Gloucester of where they should be, and this will give us adequate time to really think long and hard about zoning and understand what's happening with the Cannabis Control Commission. So I will too be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor Blank.
I'm going to support this also tonight. I think we need to put the brakes on for a little bit to figure out where we're going with this. As Lisa said, that there are many different ways that you can use recreational marijuana. It's not just smoking it and having the smell to detect it. You know, kids can vape it, and they can have edibles and all kinds of things that go undetected. So I think we need to put the brakes on for a little bit, figure out what we want to do with this before we jump in with both feet.
Anybody else? Councilor O'Hara.
I agree. I'll support this. I think the Commonwealth obviously has their arms full in trying to figure out how things are going. I don't think we should be taking a step over them. Let them spend the horsepower and manpower to figure things out when we come in afterwards. Thank you.
All set? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Orlando?
Yes.
Councilor Scalino?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman? Yes. Councilor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Councilor Lambert?
Yes.
Motion to add a new section 5.31 for temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments to the Gloucester Code of Ordinances passes on a vote, 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Okay. Next item.
Sorry. Okay, so the last public hearing is Public Hearing 2017-029, Special City Council Permit 2017-006, Great Republic Drive number 38, map 263, lot 64, the Gloucester Zoning Ordinance, section 1.8.3, 1.5.3C, and 5.7 major project, and 5.27 medical marijuana treatment centers and medical marijuana cultivation facilities.
First thing, I want to advise you that we know we only have 7 councilors here, and it's going to take 6 to make this pass. So are you comfortable moving forward?
We are comfortable moving forward.
Okay. Is there anybody that wants to recuse himself or say something? Councilor Orlando? Huh? No, I haven't opened yet. You want me? I'll open the public hearing. Councilor Orlando.
Thank you. I'd like to make a disclosure. I am a member of BNI, which is a local networking organization much like the Chamber of Commerce or the Rotary Club. Attorney Favaza, the lawyer for Happy Valley, is also a member of BNI with me. While I have occasionally done business with Mr. Favaza in the past, I have no financial interest in the matter before us tonight. Therefore, I can be fair and objective in my analysis of the issue and vote accordingly, so I will not be recusing myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor LeBlanc.
I also am a member of BNI. I have done occasionally done business with Attorney Favaza. I have no financial interest in the matter before us tonight, so I also will be voting on this accordingly, and I don't have any, I can be fair and objective also.
Okay. Councilor Nolan.
As well, I was a member of BNI.
Thank you.
I was a member of BNI with Councilor Favaza. I have had business dealings with him in the past, but again, I can be fair and objective in the analysis of this issue, and this won't affect my decision.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Gilman.
I have to admit and disclose that Attorney Favaza just represented our house, our piece of land that we have adjacent to our house. We successfully sold it, and we closed. So, but I did want to just mention that that he did represent us on a transaction that is no longer, it's finished, and I will not financially gain from this decision. Thank you.
Okay, we all declared. Councilor, do you want to speak in favor of this proposal?
I would very much like to. Thank you. For the record, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 111 Main Street here in Gloucester. I'm here on behalf of Happy Valley Ventures Massachusetts Incorporated. With me tonight is Michael Reardon, chairman of the board. To his right is Sam Tracy with Forefront Consulting Group. He'll be here to speak with you in a little bit. To his right is David Hunt with American Alarm, and to his right, no stranger to this council, John Jubb with Gateway Consultants. And Dana, I have cards for you for the... So the goals tonight are to once again reintroduce Happy Valley to the City Council. It's been some time since we've been here.
Excuse me, Joel.
Sure.
Can that screen go up a little bit, because you know we're only seeing half of it here. Great, that's a little better. Thank you.
So I'll reintroduce Happy Valley to the council. We'll talk about all the progress we've had since we first began this process. We'll go over the proposed project itself. We'll meet some of the team that's here tonight, and then we'll go through the legal standards. So Happy Valley, as required by current regulations, is a Massachusetts non-for-profit corporation. They're fully compliant with the necessary statutes governing non-profit corporations. The people behind the corporation have a strong background in running nonprofit and a strong background in real estate development. Happy Valley has provisional certificates of registration for 3 facilities. They have a facility in Amherst, a facility in Boston, and they're looking to have a facility here in Gloucester at 38 Great Republic Drive. One of the big changes since I was last here is that 38 Great Republic Drive initially was going to be one of 3 dispensaries and potentially, if things went well, an adjunct cultivation center. And now 38 Great Republic is poised to be the flagship cultivation facility for the entirety of Happy Valley's medicinal marijuana dispensaries throughout the Commonwealth, as well as a state-of-the-art dispensary in itself. So here's the timeline. I'll be as brief as I can because it's a long timeline. This started back in February of 2016. That's when my clients and I first reached out to the city to let them know that my clients were looking to do business in Gloucester. We worked with the planning board early 2016 and with the city council to help rework the section 5.27 of the zoning ordinance. As you recall, there were some issues where it had been passed in an incomplete form, and we worked to provide some language that we thought would benefit the city and would benefit potential applicants to actually be able to make a meaningful use of it. In April of 2016, we hosted a community open house at the tavern, explained the details, basically what a medical marijuana dispensary was, what a medical marijuana dispensary was not. We negotiated with the city administration a host community agreement, which was executed by my client and by the city administration, and the administration also issued a letter of non-opposition to Happy Valley coming to Gloucester. Fall through the winter, we applied for and received a city council special permit to construct and operate a registered marijuana dispensary, as I believe you're all here for that. And then we, coming off of that, received some news that the facility in Fitchburg, which was initially intended to be the cultivation facility, the main cultivation facility, there were severe problems, unexpected problems with the building they were going to repurpose. As Happy Valley continued to work with consultants, it became more apparent that rather than repurposing an existing structure, it would be more beneficial to custom build a cultivation center to meet my client's needs, meet state regulations, meet the demands of the patients. And based on the warm reception we received at the City Council in December, Happy Valley made the decision to relocate the cultivation center here in Gloucester. We made an official application in April of this year for this current design. We spent the summer incorporating feedback. We received a lot of feedback from the planning department, the engineering department, the fire department, DPW, et cetera. And at this point in the record, and hopefully in your packet, and if not, I have copies of everything, we have memoranda from all those departments giving the okay from their various standpoints of review. We also received a lot of approvals from other municipal boards. We received a Conservation Commission order of conditions in May of this year. And then this month, we just received planning board site plan approval on unanimous vote Planning Board positive recommendation on unanimous vote. P&D gave us a unanimous recommendation for you tonight. And just last night we were at the EDIC and we needed to receive, in addition to their general blessing for the project that's inside their park, we needed to receive certain waivers for some of their covenants, and we received every waiver that was necessary to construct and operate the project as proposed. There is one caveat to the site plan approval process that I'll discuss momentarily, dealing with a minor issue regarding decoration on the southern face of the building. So, Happy Valley comes to Gloucester. What does it mean for the city? Well, we're taking a long vacant parcel in the second half of the industrial park and we're turning it into a functioning piece of property. It'll be fully taxable despite the fact that the entity running the business is a nonprofit. The entity that owns the property is a for-profit LLC, so they will be receiving real estate tax assessments on the yearly. HEV is committed to using local contractors whenever possible. It anticipates being an active member of the corporate community here in Gloucester. It does not want to just be isolated out in the park, twiddling its thumbs, and wants to get to know the rest of the business community. We are currently pegged to employ approximately 97 employees at full capacity. And again, Happy Valley is committed to hiring from the local talent pool. Obviously, as will be explained in a little bit, anyone who applies for a job and seeks a job will need to be approved by the Department of Public Health also. And of course, the main goal in operating a medical marijuana dispensary is to provide a medical treatment service that is currently lacking on Cape Ann to the Cape Ann residents. The project before you is a purpose-built medical marijuana cultivation facility and dispensary. And what that means, this is not something that they picked out of a catalog. This is something that a series of engineers, architects, studied the site, the topography, the shape, the location, and custom designed this building for this location. Some of the highlights include a secure garage. So for instance, one of the EDIC covenants is you're supposed to have an open loading dock that an 18-wheeler can back into if you're going to have a loading dock at all. And we had to get a waiver from that covenant last night because instead we won't be using 18-wheelers, we'll be using cargo vans. And instead of an open-air loading dock, we have a fully secured garage where you show proper credentials, the door opens up, the vehicle pulls entirely inside the building, the door shuts before that van begins loading or unloading. The dispensary floor itself, again, as you remember from the last design, it's very similar. It was designed to make sure that there's room for private consultation, there's room for security via the on-site security, and obviously the multitude of cameras and other monitoring devices to make sure that there are no blind spots, to make sure that the entire facility is under watchful eye at all times that it's open. Again, it's going to be not only bringing jobs, but a lot of these jobs are what we kind of refer to colloquially as 21st century jobs. There's going to be R&D happening in this facility. There's going to be highly technical agriculture happening in this building. There will be your more routine security positions, more routine retail positions, that sort of thing. But there are a multitude of 21st century cutting edge jobs that'll come with this. As I mentioned earlier, we have the host community agreement, which, as discussed previously, by year 3 requires Happy Valley, in addition to any real estate taxes being assessed to the owning entity of the property, Happy Valley itself has to cut a check for at least $100,000 to the city of Gloucester, or 5% of gross sales, whichever is more. And at this point, if the gross sales as projected, you're looking at more than $250,000 through that host community agreement from the gross sales projected. $12 million in construction costs. That alone, as my client is learning, the permit fee alone for that is going to be a huge chunk of change to the city of Gloucester, not to mention all those construction workers here patroning local businesses. And again, although there's a max of 60 per shift, we have 97 jobs on the payroll. This is just a quick projection of revenues and patients served. They're looking to serve just under 200 patients per day at full capacity once they're up to full speed. That's just under 70,000 patients per year. If the average patient spends $100 per visit, that's a gross revenue of 6.8, and so realistically, 5 of that is more like, goodness, $340,000 on that 5%. So here's what we have now. Here's the current lot. That's the Swan Net building across the street. We're looking at the empty lot. This is the existing site. These don't look great in the PowerPoint. I have the full set in PDF if there are any questions regarding the site plan itself. This is the site plan with the building superimposed onto it. And if I'm good with my laser pen here. And so the patient entryway is, the patient entryway and the employee entryway also is through this lower entrance. Patient parking is all along here. The main entryway is on the northeasterly, Dana, sorry for the here's and there's, is on the northeasterly portion of the building. Parking spaces along the northeasterly ridge of the building as well. Employee parking is pushed along the southerly boundary of the property, the westerly portion of the property. This site plan, like I said, received site plan approval, received thorough examination from the city departments, and it took a while. We got to a place where we were able to check off all the boxes, make sure that it was a site that would function from a regulatory standpoint and also from a practical standpoint for my clients. And so we're very pleased to have that before you today. Again, this is just the building with topography placed on it. This is more in the slideshow just in case there are questions that we need to refer back to. Here we have 2 renderings. The top picture is the northern face of the building, and the bottom picture is the southern face of the building, which faces Great Republic. So one of the things I mentioned, there's a caveat relating to site plan approval. When we went to the planning board, we received a lot of pushback on the fact that this is approximately 330 feet long and it's a white sheet metal building. And we pointed out that, well, across the street and down one parcel is a 315-foot long white sheet metal building. And this, isn't so out of place in an industrial park. Nevertheless, certain members of the planning board felt that there was potential here to support the arts, and as such, we agreed to, as part of their site plan approval, install 1,000 square feet of murals. We had roughly proposed interspersing, maybe 5 equally along the taller portion of the building. Nevertheless, when we got to the EDIC, they understood the planning board's desire, and they thought it was an honorable one. However, EDIC, who has ultimate aesthetic control over this portion of the park, felt it would be inappropriate for buildings in an industrial park to have murals on the side. And so although they gave us a waiver because this is not a building made of stone or brick as the covenant requires, they allow it to be white sheet metal because it was explained to them there's actually a thermodynamic component to having these pre-engineered white sandwich boards, essentially, with insulation between 2 metal sheets. And they were okay with that. And they were okay with what they considered a clean look, but they were not okay with the murals. So you have a planning board recommendation and a P&D recommendation that includes murals. I'm going to ask the council tonight not to accept those recommendations. And we have a site plan approval that will have to go back and just seek a minor modification of that to remove the murals from the site plan approval. That doesn't necessarily affect us tonight because site plan approval, although is complete, does not need to be completed in order for this council to grant a special permit. And again, although you have recommendations from P&D and Planning Board with the murals on there, seeing as EDIC has prohibited it, I would hope the City Council could see to ignoring those recommendations and nevertheless going with what the EDIC has required of us. Up next, Sam Tracy from Forefront is going to come up. Forefront is a leading firm dealing with medical marijuana issues here in this state and as well as others. And Sam's going to walk through how this dispensary is going to function.
Hello, everyone. As Joel said, my name is Sam Tracy. I have presented before the City Council here before, but just as a matter of reintroduction, again, my name is Sam Tracy. I'm Director of Government Relations for Forefront Ventures. And Forefront Ventures is a consulting firm that works all over the country, but one of our two headquarters, one is in Phoenix, Arizona, and another is Boston, Massachusetts. So we are a Massachusetts company. We are heavily involved in this state. We've won a total of 55 licenses for clients, all medical marijuana licenses in 7 jurisdictions so far. That's 6 states plus DC. And we're working with Happy Valley, both to guide them through the licensing process, but then also to help them run a successful operation that serves patients in compliance with state law once they are open. And so we are providing those comprehensive policies and procedures. We have an operating model that includes training modules, job descriptions for all the positions, and a lot of operational support to make sure that they're as successful as possible. And we will also be providing employee training and ensuring, of course, compliance with state law, since that is so important for this highly regulated industry. To talk briefly about some of the conditions that are helped by medical marijuana, it is quite wide-ranging, and in Massachusetts, that decision is left up to between the patient and their doctor. But some of the most important ones are listed here on this slide. It includes cancer, ALS. Epilepsy is something that has been gaining a lot of public attention, especially among children. You may have heard of Dravet syndrome, Charlotte's Web being a strain that includes high concentrations of CBD, cannabidiol, while very low, essentially negligible amounts of THC, the psychoactive compound. So as you've probably heard a lot of before, there's many different forms of cannabis that can be used. Some of them are oils, transdermal patches, lozenges, that sort of thing. This isn't necessarily the smoking that's traditionally associated with cannabis. It does also work well for multiple sclerosis, PTSD, glaucoma, and muscular dystrophy, among many other conditions. Talking briefly about some of the employee hiring practices. Again, this is incredibly regulated by the state. Just in order to work in a facility, whether that's a cultivation facility or a dispensary, you do need to register with the state. You get, it's being called a dispensary agent or a cultivation agent, and that's managed by the Department of Public Health. And this verifies that employees have a clean criminal history. It includes background checks, and it also makes sure that they are trained in understanding all of those regulations, because of course compliance is so important. And that includes everything from proper storage of the medicine, inventory control, working with patients, and understanding exactly what the state law allows. Talking briefly again about some of the operations that are involved, compliance is really the highest priority here. Obviously, patients are our main priority, but we can only serve them if we're doing so in compliance with state law. And that includes everything from inventory tracking. You may have heard the term seed to sale thrown around in this industry. What essentially that means is that from the very moment a plant is put into the ground, planted at the cultivation facility, it's tagged with an RFID tag, and it's tracked throughout the entire process from being grown as a plant to harvested, processed into various different products, and then sold to consumers. And this is helpful for a wide variety of reasons, namely preventing diversion. You don't want anyone stealing product, of course, or going missing or anything like that. But then also for batch control, it's very rare, but if there was ever a need for a recall or something like that, it would be easy to identify exactly where all of that product went and make sure that it's taken out of the supply. We do also, of course, report practices to local agencies. We're, of course, regulated by the state, but working with local officials, local law enforcement, other departments is also a high priority for us. It includes, there's all sorts of medicine testing that has to be done. There's third-party testing labs that are actually not allowed to be commercially affiliated with the cultivators or dispensaries that have to test all of the product that is then sold in your facility. So that includes testing for things like potency, so knowing how much THC, CBD, or other cannabinoids are included in the product, but then also making sure that it doesn't include unsafe levels of mold or pesticides or other contaminants. We do also, of course, have a strong emphasis on patient education, since this is very new for many patients. Some may, of course, have been purchasing on the black market previous to this law being implemented, and we want to make sure that they understand exactly what the state law allows so that they're staying in compliance with that. And finally, of course, staff licensing. As I was saying, you need to become a registered agent with the state government just in order to work in one of these facilities. So we guide Happy Valley through that entire process and set up procedures to make sure that that goes smoothly. Expanded upon some operations as well. We have helped with optimizing the dispensary design, which I'll walk you through the floor plan in a moment. We have those staffing charts and job descriptions, as I mentioned, and a large number of materials that are used to make sure that their facility is run as responsibly as possible. As I was saying, we work in states all over the country. Many of them have had their laws in place for far longer than Massachusetts, so we're able to take a lot of the best practices from those other states, make sure that they fit into Massachusetts state law and any sort of local regulations that are in place. Now, walking you through the dispensary floor plan briefly, and I'll just use the laser pointer to guide you through. And we're only going to address the dispensary here because that's the only part that's potentially open to the public. It's only open to patients, but the cultivation facility is completely reserved for staff and then, of course, for any government officials that would be inspecting the facility. But as far as the dispensary goes, as I was saying, it's open to patients, not the general public. So when people enter, this being the front of the facility, there's a vestibule, also known as a man trap, in which essentially you need to show your patient registration card just to be able to get into the building. And so that's displayed there. So unlike a pharmacy, for example, it's not that anyone can just walk in and then purchase whatever their prescription would be. You need to have an active registration just to get into the building. And so once patients have cleared that they have their card, they move into the lobby where staff will be able to assist them and answer any questions that they may have. And they can wait in the lobby here. There's also, of course, publicly available bathrooms there. And once we'll be very tightly controlling the number of patients that are in the floor, just to make sure that it doesn't get too crowded in there and that they can be assisted in a proper manner. So when patients are able to enter, they move from the lobby into the showroom, where they'll be assisted by staff in order to understand all of the various products that are available and figure out what would be best for treating their individual ailments. We do also have a private consultation room. Since many patients, of course, this is a medical facility, and people, because you want to be private about your medical situation, your medical history, people might not want to be doing that on the public showroom. So because of that, they can be taken into the private consultation room and speak in much more depth, both about their individual situation and help them get a better understanding of what products could be most helpful for them. And then when they are checking out, the cashiers are right over here. They would be assisted by staff members. And so as I was saying, this is all restricted. So this entire area, aside from the vestibule, lobby, showroom, and the bathrooms, is restricted solely to staff, or sorry, the private consultation room as well. But this entire area is completely restricted, and only staff members will be allowed to enter the facility back there. After patients are completely checked out, they'll be able to move out, and there's a dedicated exit over on this side. And there are also, of course, many security features that are included inside the dispensary. There is a security office. There's 24/7 video surveillance both inside the facility and external cameras as well. So security staff can oversee the floor there and also monitor all of the security cameras and other equipment. There is a secure vault where all of the medicine is stored. So that's both during operations, the vast majority of the medicine will be inside the vault, and then when the facility is closed, it'll all be sealed in there in compliance with state regulations and making sure that the facility is as secure as possible. And now moving on to cultivation and processing.
So in addition to employing Forefront as a lead consultant, Happy Valley has sought the services of M. Hardeen. They, again, are the experts in the field of the actual cultivation, the science behind getting the most potential out of these plants and doing it in an efficient, economic, and advantageous way. And again, you can see from this slide, they have a ton of experience throughout the country. And again, my clients are looking to build a top-of-the-line facility. They have teamed up with the leaders in their respective fields, including M. Hardin. Another is Agogi is a security company, the compliance management for security features. A lot of the people at Agogi were actually special agents with the DEA. These are people who truly understand law enforcement, they truly understand security protocol, and they also offer, if the city ever were interested, providing training for local police departments so that if there are any questions as to how to deal with a medical marijuana dispensary in town, they would be glad to provide local training to the department. Security on site, not the guards, the actual equipment is done by American Alarm. Mr. Hunt's here tonight if you have any questions about this. And actually, I'll have him come up real quick and just give a quick overview as to the type of technology that you'll find at this facility.
Thank you, folks. David Hunt, American Alarm and Communications. The state of Massachusetts has the most rigid guidelines for protecting these facilities, inside and out. Not only do we record every inch of it, whether it's product, we cover the outside of the building. You cannot have access to any area without authorization. You track the movement of people inside the facility, and we have a state-of-the-industry alarm system also. And the state comes in and inspects what we do at the beginning, during installation, and after. I also will meet with the police chief in town and go over our plans with him to make sure he's comfortable with how we're protecting this and answer any questions he has about the state's requirements and why it's so rigid. Thank you.
It's another real fun stuff, the legalese. Because we are here under section 5.27, we have triggered major project review, site plan review, and the need for a special permit from the city council. Again, as I mentioned, site plan review has been completed. We do have an approval. There's a minor modification needed on that approval, but it is complete. Subsection 0.4 discusses criminal background checks. Again, that's all taken care of at a DPH level. Subsection 0.5 is separation of facilities. We comply with the distance requirements from schools, churches, residentially zoned property. Subsection 7, we have to comply with the sign ordinance, as does every business in town, and that's no problem on our end. Point 8 is that the production must be attached to the cultivation or treatment facility. And as you may recall, our previous design had separate facilities on this lot, and we've, in this redesign, been able to comply with this subsection. The building is contiguous. And subsection 0.9 requires annual reports being sent to the city. As you may recall, there's extensive annual reporting to the state, and my client has no issue providing a copy to the city as well. We have the familiar 1.8.3 standards, social, economic, and community needs. Again, we're providing a medical service to the community, providing construction jobs, so it's short-term employment. We're also providing ongoing employment for the residents who are able to secure a job working for the facility once it's up and running. Traffic flow and safety. Again, this site is specifically designed for this use. There's been extensive input from the city department heads to make sure the site is going to function, again, both to meet the city's needs and to meet my client's needs. And obviously it's connecting to Great Republic Drive, which is one of the better laid out roads in the city, as it was intentionally done and not done in the 1600s. Adequacy of utilities and other public services. We're in the industrial park. My client has been actively communicating with National Grid, making sure that there'll be no issues getting the electrical demand for the numerous lights that they'll have inside the growing facility, and that's all going fine. Neighborhood character. The industrial park is a hodgepodge, but more importantly, the industrial park is the only place in the city of Gloucester the zoning ordinance allows an RMD by special permit. They're banned elsewhere, so we'd say it fits in with the neighborhood because it's the only neighborhood called out for this sort of use. Qualities of the natural environment. I think we're doing a big plus here. As you saw from that overhead, it's a lot with a lot of dirt, stone, and some scrub plants. There's a lot of invasive species that are being removed, and the whole site is being comprehensively landscaped. Anasquam Land Care out of Gloucester has been selected to provide the planting plan that's been vetted again by city department heads. And we're in the process, I owe Mr. Payson a draft. We have reached out to the DPW and the city solicitor. We're intending to landscape all the way up to the back of the existing sidewalk. As you've seen from the site plans, our parking spaces are pretty close to our southerly lot line. There isn't a whole lot of room for any sort of lush screening. There's just room for, necessary screening. And so by offering to take over the maintenance of the grounds leading up to the existing sidewalk, we'll be able to provide a really lush, really pretty landscape design along the southerly face of the property. And then potential fiscal impact, again, minimum of $100,000 a year just from that host community agreement after year 3. The site and the buildings remain fully taxable. And lastly, we have major project standards to adhere to. We need access from an arterial or collector street. That's done. We're on Great Republic. B does not apply. C is that is a bunch of site plan requirements. Again, this is making sure lighting avoids glare. The lighting has all been designed to be high mounted facing downwards so that it's not spilling out onto neighboring parcels. And again, there are no residents anywhere nearby, so it wouldn't be like if there was light bleed, it would be going in someone's window, but there is none in the first place. There's ample parking and turnaround area within the site. The Gloucester zoning ordinance calls for approximately 46 parking spaces for a project of this size. We're providing 75. And then we're not expanding beyond the footprint of the existing fill. There's a portion in the northerly edge of the site where there's a retaining wall that's on an angle that's going to be brought a little more straight up and down, just to make sure the path is wide enough for even the city's largest fire trucks to get through. But otherwise, the footprint of the fill isn't being expanded toward any of the wetlands. We have to comply with the other ordinances, other sections of the ordinance. We do. The rest do not apply because we're not a multifamily, we're not a shopping center, we are not an assisted living facility. So that's the end of the presentation as planned. Obviously, the entire team is here to answer any questions you might have, as am I.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor? Please come up. Seeing none, is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition?
Leora Elwick, 7 Grandview Road. I guess I don't have a complete understanding of the medical marijuana, but it's my understanding that it could potentially become a recreational marijuana facility, and I'm hoping that the moratorium also pertains to them. I don't know if I can ask that question. I guess I just want to ask the city council, how could this have gone through? I feel like as a city, I don't understand why we need this. We can't have 2 hotels here, but we can have a marijuana facility. Doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak against? Please come up.
Lisa Grollo, 598 Western Ave. I guess I'm confused. I feel like 588 cars a day coming into Gloucester to go to this facility is a lot of traffic. And then what I'm picturing in my mind is 588 people with medical marijuana on the streets of Gloucester, actually anywhere between here, New Hampshire, and Boston, and then Amherst. So this will be the hub where close to 600 people per day, according to their numbers, can come to buy in the showroom as much medical marijuana as their prescription allots. So how are we going to regulate that 600 drug dealers per day are not hitting the streets of Gloucester? And I guess that's my question. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak against? Are there any communications?
There are none.
We're up at council questions, and I'm going to start. Do you want to do a rebuttal? Okay.
not just for the council, but for the concerned citizens that are here tonight. So the first thing I'll address is the transition potential. Regardless of the moratorium, regardless of the eventual zoning ordinance that is or is not passed by the City Council, my client has accepted a condition as part of the site plan approval and as part of the recommendation from P&D that any transition or attempted transition of this facility from a medical marijuana dispensary to a recreational or adult use facility will require us to come back before the City Council to seek a modification, at minimum modification of this permit, and will also require us to go back to the Planning Board for, at minimum, a modification of their site plan approval. I have to imagine, based on my experience with the City of Gloucester zoning ordinance, that the City of Gloucester is going to have an eventual ordinance that is going to require the exact same permitting process we've just been through, if not more. But even if the City of Gloucester said, by right, you can open up recreational, my client would still be required to come back and seek a special permit. So there's no slipping anything in through the back door. And I just want to correct the number. It's 188 patients per day. As far as traffic flow, again, this is the Blackburn Industrial Park, so we are directly off of Route 128. The industrial park itself receives thousands of people, thousands of employees per day in and out of that park. The addition of 188 patients over a 10 to 12 hour workday is going to have a negligible impact on the traffic in and out of the park. And again, although they aren't here tonight, as you will remember from the previous public hearing, you know, the people seeking to utilize this facility are not drug dealers. These are people with legitimate medical ailments who are seeking relief and are seeking treatment. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I'll give an opportunity to, if they want to rebut the rebuttal.
Joshua Ulrich at 7 Grandview Road. I have a lot of questions about this too. I'm not particularly well prepared to speak to it, other than some of the obvious concerns that I hope you will all consider. Is I remember living out in California when this thing started out in Venice Beach. You'd have dispensaries, and then some doctor would put up a shingle right near the dispensary, basically making it very easy to go and get a prescription. I think that you'd all agree with me that there's a lot of pressure by the pharmaceutical industry, and perhaps this is just another example of it, of the industry finding a way to put the arm on the doctors through their money, their power, and, well, you call it lobbying. If this sort of thing comes to town, I think that you guys will find a lot of pressure put on you to go ahead and make decisions that are in the interest of supporting this lucrative industry. And what we're really going to end up with another one of these instances, possibly, where again the social costs outweigh the revenue that's coming in. Do we really want the possibility that we're going to have doctors in town starting to do heavily prescribe to this facility, and again being a magnet for the kind of people that are going to be coming here? Sure, some of them will have legitimate reasons to get treated by this stuff, but I think you'll agree with me that a lot of the people that get these marijuana cards are in fact, again, malingering, faking symptoms because they want to get high. As far as living in this community, it's not something I would want to have here, and I certainly think, at minimum, it would require a good deal more thought and research before any decisions made. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I have a question for the Director of Government Consulting, Mr. Sam Tracy. Thank you. Such a good title. So I have a question regarding how you envision the checking of the authenticity of the medical cards. Can you describe that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Because I think that that's important for us to understand.
Yeah, so the way that works, there's a multi-step process. So as a patient, imagine you're a patient walking into the building. Just to get in, that vestibule, you need to show visibly your patient card. So you have a physical plastic card. It looks similar to a driver's license that has your patient ID number. There's a barcode on it that can be scanned. So you show that visibly just to get into the lobby. Then once you walk in the door, there will be a receptionist there who has access to the state computer system, where they will actually scan your card and make sure that it's legitimate before you move from the lobby into the showroom. So when you, because there is this state system that has a registry of all of the patients statewide and how much, there's state restrictions that on how much you're allowed to purchase in a given 60-day window, so they also confirm that you're below your limit, since they don't want people, buying far too much because of the fears of diversion. So there's a state system that will confirm that, and then afterwards they're able to move into the rest of the facility, select the medicine that they'd be purchasing, and then finally it would be checked once again at the point of sale. So with the same state system, just to make sure one more time that that what they selected is within the limit of what is allowed by the state during that 60-day window, that they're a valid patient, and then they can complete the transaction. So there's 3 layers of card checking. The first just to get into the building, which is visual, but then the second to move into the bulk of the facility and then to actually make the purchase, and those are both with the state registration system.
So, follow up? Thank you. Thank you. So typically a doctor would write a prescription for some type of cannabis for MS or cancer, whatever the issue is, the medical issue. So at that point, the card becomes just the opportunity to purchase that, as opposed, I guess I'm a little bit, it's just something new to me, and I'm still a little bit confused in terms of the difference of a very specific prescription where you're told to go in and get this jar, and now it seems like it's kind of a more open-ended.
Yeah, so it's somewhat, it's very similar to what, the familiar prescription drug system, but with a few major differences, like you pointed out. One thing, just in terms of some legal technicalities, it's a recommendation rather than a prescription, and that's basically due to federal law, since this is still not legal at the federal level, but we have 29 states now that allow it at the state level, and so that's, I could go into the legal details of that if you'd like to, but they're a little bit boring. But it's a recommendation rather than a prescription. And the doctor does review your medical history. They have to have a bona fide relationship with the patient. So unlike what's seen in California, which was mentioned before, especially in the early days back, that was passed in 1996. They were the first state to do it. It was the Wild West. It was incredibly loosely regulated, and their reputation for being able to get a card for essentially any ailment it was well earned. But other states have learned from that since. Massachusetts, we didn't pass our law until 2012, so it is a lot more strictly regulated than the California system. So the doctor does have to have a bona fide relationship with the patient, review their medical history, then they can grant them the recommendation, which allows them to enter the facility and purchase cannabis. So there are restrictions on how much they're allowed to purchase, but you are correct that unlike, say, a typical prescription in which they're going to say this exact type of pill for this exact quantity, it is a little more open-ended in that you're able to go to the facility and possibly say you're a cancer patient and you've never tried this before, since it is something that varies so much from individual to individual. You're able to be assisted from the medical staff at the dispensary to find what works for you. Some people will find that, say, a sublingual strip is much more useful for them because they have difficulty swallowing a pill or something like that. So they're able to work expertise in-house, so that we're able to guide patients to what would work best for them, and then also see the different products that are created over time in order to help their ailment the best.
My question is for General Counsel through the chair. If you could ask Mr. Payson to join us for a minute. Not you, Joel. Yes, there's a question, a procedural question for us. So we have just heard in the presentation that there is a sort of dispute or there's two opposing issues here. One about murals from the planning board requiring that they dress up the side of the building, and the other from the EDIC, which actually controls the covenants to that piece of property, that says there can't be anything of the like. And we just heard from Mr. Favaza that at some point they're going to actually have to go back and do even more review at the planning board level, I assume, related to this. So my question is, procedurally speaking, is it something that the council has the power to simply strike from the conditions forwarded to us from the planning board? And would that be, I think, procedurally a more appropriate way to approach this than, you know, with the legal impossibility that we have? I mean, the EDIC controls the covenant to that property, so they have a legal impossibility on their hands. So if we are to approve it, are we able to do that by making a motion to strike that portion of the...
Council, to answer your question, the city council is a special permit granting authority. So ultimately, you're the decision maker. So if you decide, as presented here, that there's an issue that really becomes problematic if passed as proposed, I think you have the power to make changes.
Okay, thank you.
There is a motion. On a motion by Councilor Cox, seconded by Councilor Gilman, the Planning and Development Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council issue a major project special council permit, SCP 2017-006, for a medical marijuana cultivation facility and treatment permit and medical marijuana and treatment center to Happy Valley Ventures, Mass. Inc., HVV applicant, map 263, lot 64 at Great Republic Drive, number 38, pursuant to sections 1.5.3C, section 5.7 major project, and section 5.27 medical marijuana treatment centers and medical marijuana cultivation facilities, and 1.8.3 of the zoning ordinance as shown on the plans as submitted to the city clerk's office on April 19, 2017, and supplemental plans submitted to the city clerk's office on August 3, 2017, and existing conditions plan by Gateway Consultants, Inc., Gloucester, Mass., dated 3/2017, with revisions through 9/13/17, consisting of 4 sheets, and a landscaping plan by Anasquam Land Care, Inc., Gloucester, Mass., dated August 22, 17. This special council permit is in harmony pursuant to the governing zoning ordinance with the addition of the following conditions. 1, facade, at least 1,000 square feet of the southern face of the proposed building be covered in tasteful artwork such as murals, the selection process for which must be initiated within 30 days of receiving a special council permit for the proposed facility. An as-built certification by a licensed architect or engineer stating the condition has been complied with shall be provided to the city prior to receiving an occupancy permit. 2, planting plan. HVV must enter into a written agreement with the city satisfactory to the department, the Director of Public Works, and the General Counsel to perpetually maintain the plantings proposed in the public way prior to receiving an occupancy permit. 3, potential future use. Any proposed change in the use of the facility to dispense non-medical marijuana products shall require the modification of the City Council major project special permit and the Planning Board site plan review approval. 4, snow-related debris. HVV must maintain a landscaping and/or site maintenance agreement that includes an annual, on or before April 30th of each year, cleaning of the northern stone wall to remove any debris deposited during snow removal efforts from the prior winter. 5, dedicated patient parking. parking spaces numbered 11 through 27 on the site plan are to be reserved solely for patient parking, with the exception that staff requiring handicap parking be permitted to use such spots, and that should HVV staff require use of more than 2 of the existing handicapped accessible parking spots, HVV will designate additional spots in the eastern parking field for handicap employee use. 6, safety fence. A safety fence is to be erected atop the proposed retaining wall along the northern portion of the upland. 7, compact car parking. Parking spaces numbered 8, 9, and 10 on the site plan be designated compact car parking only in an effort to prevent interference with fire apparatus access with those spaces are in use. And finally, 8, 80,000-pound vehicle load. HVV must produce a certificate from a licensed engineer that the northern fire access lane will be able to handle an 80,000-pound vehicle load prior to receiving an occupancy permit, and I so move.
I'm going to move to amend Councilor Lundberg's motion to eliminate condition number 1 and to renumber all conditions numerically thereafter. So 2 becomes 1, 3 becomes 2, etc.
Second.
This vote is just for the removal of striking this number 1, okay? Majority vote, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. So now we're back to the original motion. Council discussion. You want to start? Okay, Councilor Orlando.
So, a few things. I think we should strongly consider as a council what we have in front of us as a community for needs. 2 schools, a public safety building, infrastructure improvements, among other things that we need to spend a heck of a lot of money on. There's a lot of people, especially in Councilor Nolan and Councilor Gilman's wards, that don't have city sewer, that would love it. There's a lot of projects that we could be spending significant revenue on to improve the life of our constituents. I don't take lightly that we don't have a lot of precedent here in Massachusetts for a business like this and what it brings to the community. But I've seen nothing but professionalism from the applicant. I think the presentation was fantastic. I think you guys have been very compliant with all the boards and commissions. I appreciate that. I appreciate your willingness to come and invest in our community. These are manufacturing jobs we're talking about. When's the last time someone came and dumped manufacturing jobs of this magnitude into Gloucester? It hasn't happened in a long time. So I think we have to consider all that. I have complete trust in our excellent police department here in Gloucester to become educated and to learn how to handle the new issues that they're going to be faced with. And I trust that they'll handle it appropriately. But when I look at the placement of this out in an industrial park, and I look at the benefits it's going to bring for jobs and for revenues to the community, I think this makes it an absolute no-brainer. So I'm going to be supporting this motion tonight, this application.
Councilor Blank.
Thank you. So I thought I knew everything about marijuana, just like, well, what everybody else thinks. You roll up a joint or you put it in a pipe and you smoke it, and that's basically, you know, consumption. Since we've had this recreational marijuana, which has nothing to do with this, but to do the research that I've done on medicinal marijuana, it's not just smoking pot. There are botanicals, there are a lot of medicinal products that don't have the THC in them, that is the compound that gets you stoned. There are botanicals, there are tinctures, there are CBDs, there are creams, there are lip balms, there are salves. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can put on your body or in your system to alleviate pain and a bunch of medical symptoms without getting high, so to speak. And like I said, I thought you just roll a joint, so that's what people do, roll a joint and smoke it. But to do all the research that I've done over the past several months or over just over a year. It's amazing that what I've uncovered. So I am going to support this. I think there is a need, not just for the city of Gloucester, but a lot of residents and surrounding communities to have this prescription fulfilled. We've listened to the proposed people at Happy Valley that are leaders in the forefront of the industry. We've heard about the security that I was completely overwhelmed with, both the facial recognition and the layers and layers of security that are going to be on this property. And I think that if they're going to go in this far with this facility, that they're going to staff it with the correct, with the right people to do the right thing, and not supply drug dealers and supply people that do not need this medicinal marijuana. So I am going to support this tonight, and I hope the rest of the council does also.
Council Lundberg.
Yes, we have, first of all, the voters approved this. Secondly, we have vetted this whole issue more extensively than any issue that in my time on the council. We vetted it during the zoning ordinance, where we zoned for the industrial park to be the only location. We had extensive discussions about where's the best place to put it. And since the application has come before the council, it's been resident with the planning and development, and we've been working with the applicant for quite a while. And their responsiveness and professionalism has been quite impressive, and I think impressive enough to give us confidence as councilors that this is going to be a success. And as Councilor Orlando pointed out, we have an issue in terms of new jobs and new revenue for the city, and I think we have protected the city in the pursuant of those revenues. So I'm going to be voting in favor of it too.
Thank you, Councilor Gilman.
So I personally did not vote for this law, but having spent a lot of time talking to folks in the community, lots in my ward as well, particularly people that are right now going through chemotherapy. Some have pain issues. One in particular has terrible MS, and this has been the only remedy for this individual. Meds have never worked except for medicinal marijuana. It's really hard to ask a person that is that sick to drive all the way up to Salem to get their prescription. It just seems to me like it's a long way. I think Blackburn is very isolated. I've gone by the site a couple of times, and it seems like the security matters have been well attended. I know Chief McCarthy early on felt that this security in the building was very, very strong. My questions were answered. I also like the fact that there is a condition in place to have to come back in front of us if in the event they opted to consider being a retail dispenser of recreational marijuana, recreational, not medicinal. But on the medicinal side, I have to really think outside my own lens and think of other people that I know really need this right now. So I will be supporting it, and I think this group has done a very professional job in presenting, so thank you very much. And also administration, planning board, zoning, every departmental head really scrutinized all the things that they needed to look at, so much appreciated. Thanks.
Councilor Nolan.
I do too want to echo most of the councilors' responses, especially thanks to all the administration, Happy Valley, and everything that's gone into this. It's been a long process. I don't believe anything's been missed. Council Lundberg in Plan and Development has done a lot of work on this, and it goes to show what can come out of good minds in that department. I really appreciate all their guidance and leadership in this area. On a personal note to this matter, I have watched family members and friends both fight and die with cancer, and I can personally let you know that my friends that have had cannabis to help them get through this situation has been a lot better off than my friends that weren't available at the time to do this. And I do believe it's necessary for the people to have this recommended treatment from the doctor, and I also believe that the business park at Blackburn is the best place to do this, and I will be supporting this tonight.
Anybody else? Councilor O'Hara.
Thank you. Similar to Councilor Nolan, I too have had friends that are fighting cancer that have used cannabis. I'm also cognizant of the dangers of this. We have a trooper, I think he's still here, that one of his fellow troopers was killed, Trooper Clardy, that a gentleman who apparently left a medical marijuana dispensary, killed a trooper on a beautiful March day on the Mass Pike, leaving 7 children. So hearing of what took place in California on the beaches, I've heard does take place here in Massachusetts. So this is a problem. These gentlemen here tonight, it's nonprofit. It's clearly they're not spending millions of dollars to. They're here to make money. You know, but the people who are in need of it, that are dying, as Councilor Nolan has pointed out, they have to go to whether it's Salem or Boston to get the marijuana to ease their pain. I have to. Hopefully, the security systems are in place. And it's beyond their control, but the medical industry is controlling who gets those medical cards. But I will, I'm torn, obviously, but I will support this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I just want to speak about a couple of things. I'm glad that we struck down the murals on the building. And I want to give you an example. If you go by the KPM Brewery, over the summer, a mural appeared on their building. And, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But let me tell you, I don't know how anybody can think that that's beautiful. And I really regret that they put that on the building. So you never know what you're going to get when you have somebody to decide that this is going to be art. I think having it clean and having it white is much more professional. And I do believe the EDIC has the role to protect it and keep the rules and keep the buildings intact. I want to address a little bit, I know these people had the concerns, that what we're approving here tonight are really two things. One is that we're approving a growing facility, and two, we're approving a medicinal marijuana dispensary. The operations are by the same owner, but they're really two different things. And I know you talked about that there's abuse. Well, there's always abuse on anything, no matter how much control that you have. The last time we heard this, Ernie Morin came up here, and he is really sick. And he finds relief by going to these shops and getting whatever the doctor prescribes. And if you see Ernie, he walks Main Street, he has a mask on because he can't take the germs, and he has a three-legged dog that he runs around, and he always walks in front of the weather vane or the lone gull. And he's been concerned. He doesn't have a car. He has a hard time getting to Salem to get what he needs. So I know sometimes we think that somebody's going to cheat and somebody's going to get something that they don't deserve. But I believe that with the controls that are in place, the majority of the people that are going to go in there are going to get what their needs are. And it's legal now in Massachusetts, and it's something that we can't really prohibit. I think if you're ill and that helps you and you have a prescription, more power to you. Anything to get through all this. And the second part of it is the manufacturing. You know, they're growing marijuana, but it's in an enclosed building. It's highly secure. You know, they could be manufacturing computer chips. Who knows? It's all, what you have to look at is that it's 95 jobs, and they're going to be 95 good-paying jobs, and hopefully it would increase. And I want you to think about when you look at the turbines. Every time I go by them, I look at them, and a lot of people objected to them. But you know what? Every year we get a nice little check, the city of Gloucester does, for all that spinning from National Grid. And that, again, like Councilor said, pays for the schools and all the rest of the expenses that we do. It's part of the revenue of the city. Now this will have revenue also, and hopefully, it will exceed, the expectation. And sometimes I hear that, why does it have to be in Gloucester? Well, you know what? This is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for jobs. It's in an industrial park. It's where it belongs. They have all the safety concerns put in there. It took a little while to put this all together, and I really congratulate the planning board and community development. I know they worked with Joel. We've had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of continuances, but you know what? We did it right. What you did tonight was a good presentation, Joel, and you did handle the criteria. I didn't have to hand you a sheet to go over them, and I was very proud that you did that. So, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Orlando?
Yes.
Councilor Shalino?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman?
Yes.
Councilor Blank?
Yes.
Councilor Lumberg?
Yes.
The motion to grant special city council permit 2017-006 for Great Republic Drive, number 38, according to Gloucester zoning ordinance section 1.83, 1.53C, and 5.7 major project, and 5.27 medical marijuana treatment centers and medical marijuana cultivation facilities, passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Good. Next item on the agenda.
Next item is for council vote, special speed regulation number 7957 from the Mass DOT regarding Hart Street.
Do you have that motion? I don't. You have it, Joe?
Okay, so on behalf of Councilor Memhard, I move.
Roll call.
I'm moving to adopt. Thank you. The following speed limits are established at which motor vehicles may be operated in the areas described. Beginning at the Hart Street northbound, beginning at the junction of Bass Avenue, Route 127A, thence northerly on Hart Street, 0.24 miles at 20 miles per hour, ending at the junction of Eastern Avenue, Route 127, the total distance being 0.24 miles, and Hart Street southbound, beginning at the junction of Eastern Avenue, Route 127, thence southerly on Hart Street, 0.24 miles at 20 miles per hour, ending at the junction of Bass Avenue, Route 127A, the total distance being 0.24 miles. And I so move.
So moved. Seconded? John, did you second it? Okay. Just a simple majority. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item.
Next item is the update of the Poet Laureate Selection Committee by City Council Representative, Councilor Paul Lumberg.
So quickly, just to remind everyone, we have in the ordinance established a Poet Laureate. We've had several. The poet laureate is designated by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. But there is a selection committee. Selection committee is comprised of a member of the Committee for the Arts. Judith Hoaglander is that person. The mayor, or one representative appointed by the mayor, that person is Rufus Collinson, a former poet laureate of the city. A member of the city council, or representative appointed by the city council, that is me. And 2 members chosen by the Committee for the Arts who have demonstrated substantial expertise and knowledge of poetry and reside in the city. And those people are Amanda Cook from the Gloucester Writers Center and Chris Anderson from Eastern Point Lit House. So that we have the selection committee, we have the applications. I have scheduled a meeting of the selection committee for next week. We will go over the applications and make a recommendation to the mayor, or to the council, the Committee for the Arts, who then forwards it to the mayor. If the mayor so approves, it'll come to the city council. So we are actually underway.
Thank you. Councilor Nolan, do you want to start the request for the mayor or anything?
I actually have more of a statement. I want to thank a great friend, a great artist, and a great contributor to a lot of the nonprofits in the city of Gloucester, Danny Diamond, who was actually the artist of the Cape Ann Brew Company, and I'd like to wish him his best on his new ventures in California.
He's the artist? Councilor Orlando.
I would like to wish my good friend, Councilor Nolan, a very happy 30th birthday.
Yay. Councilor Lundberg?
Nothing.
Okay. Councilor Gilman?
I have 2 quick things. First of all, for those watching on TV, we've been talking a lot about marijuana. On Thursday, September 28th, this Thursday, at 6 p.m., there will be a conversation of marijuana and youth at the Gloucester High School Library, 6 o'clock. And it is featuring Dr. Kevin Hill, who's a doctor, and he is the author of The Unbiased Truth About Marijuana. So we encourage people to attend. This has been sent out to all parents of all the children, students in the Gloucester Public Schools, and it's open for the public, and we hope that you will attend. The other thing I just wanted to comment on is this past Saturday night, a dear friend, Avis Murray, who was my tennis coach when I was 13, 14 years old, and has taught 3 generations of our family. My daughter worked for her. There was a wonderful celebration of her 80th birthday at Bass Rocks. It was attended by about 200 people. And in the near future, the council will be taking a look at the possibility of us approving the tennis courts at the Boulevard in her honor. The mayor discussed that at the meeting, and it's now our turn to put that into an official agreement to put those tennis courts and dedicate them to a very special person. So stay tuned. I'll put in an order for that. And Avis Murray is just a wonderful role model for all of our kids here in Gloucester and adults as well. So happy birthday, Avis.
Thank you. Councilor? Yeah. O'Hara, do you have something?
Thank you. I just want to thank the 40-odd people that came out to the Magnolia Library yesterday to donate the gift of life, their blood. There'll be another collection on November 29th. Thank you.
Councilor LeBlanc? Okay. All right, I don't have anything either. So, do I hear a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned.